This is Patrick McCarthy reporting with Tri-Cities Community Television. We're back in our mobile studios in Lee Square in Port Coquitlam. Today, as part of our council update, we have Councillor Chris Wilson in the studio.
Oh, thank you very much. My pleasure.
The first thing is you're very active, involved in the community, not as a councillor, but as in two charities that are dear to your heart. And first one is Operation Red Nose. And for those of us who kind of think we know about Operation Red Nose, can you give us a quick synopsis of what that's about?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's a safe ride home service run by volunteers in the community. It's not necessarily in every community, but where it is offered, you get three people working as a team to come and pick you up, whether you're at a Christmas party or a pub or a bar or whatever, and you just don't feel comfortable driving home. Two will drive you in your vehicle to wherever you want to go, and the third follows you in as an escort car capacity, so that once we get you to where you need to go, the two other volunteers have a way to get to the next ride. It's all done by donation, and generally people in the Tri-City area have been very generous, so it works out pretty well.
And for me, a couple things that I didn't know about, but one is it's a chapter, so you're dealing with a specific region. So Operation Red Nose is across the country. So for folks who may have dealt with it in Quebec or different parts of the province, they're kind of dealing with your chapter. And what does that cover? What area do you cover?
Yeah, so we cover the Tri-City area, Burnaby, and New Westminster. And over the Lower Mainland, there's chapters on the North Shore, our area, Surrey Langley area, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, Abbotsford, Mission, Chilliwack. So unfortunately, it's not in the city of Vancouver. And it's also not in Richmond and Delta anymore. It takes a lot of work to operate it, and it's all run by local nonprofit organizations. And so, we're always looking for new organizations that might be interested in taking it on in other communities, and always looking for more volunteers to help us in our own community.
Yeah, and I guess your focus is that's what, last 4 weekends before in Christmas, right? The December periods.
Yeah, the 4 weekends before Christmas and New Year's Eve. So basically it's 9 nights every year. We only operate during those 9 nights. But what it does is it kind of fills the void that's there during those really busy times where the taxis and the other commercial designated driving services can't meet the demand, right? And so taxis aren't, the taxi industry is happy with what we're doing because it takes a little bit of the heat off them.
Yeah.
And I think, next year with ride hailing, again, it's just, there's so much demand at certain times of the year that it's great to have all these different options.
Yeah, and the key thing is it's fundraising. I mean, you're getting volunteers to get people home safely and their car. So there's as you mentioned, 3 people helping out. You want them to donate because we'll talk later about where that money goes, because it goes right back into the community. But I guess now some people are thinking with the ICBC change and some of these rules, like having a stranger drive your car, should I be worried about that?
Yeah, great question. And we're very lucky because ICBC is a provincial sponsor of Operation Red Nose. There's a very, very comprehensive insurance policy for everybody that's involved in Operation Red Nose, from the volunteers to you as the client, perhaps. And so there's no problems with a stranger driving your car. There's no problems if the car gets into an accident. You're not going to lose your safe driving, or the volunteer's not going to lose their safe driving. It's all covered. It's all taken care of. So, there's always, every now and then, there's something comes up in the courts about, a designated driver who got sued for, getting into an accident. None of that is ever going to be an issue when it comes to volunteering for Operation Red Nose or for using the service as a client.
Yeah. And as a volunteer, is it a requirement to wear the red nose, or is that just what you do?
Yeah, those red noses are popular with some people, but no, you don't have to wear a red nose, but you proudly wear the Operation Red Nose vest. We encourage the volunteers, especially the new volunteers, they have to get a criminal records check because we want to make sure that everybody is involved in the program is doing it for the right reasons, and that the clients will be safe. As much as possible, every time we drive a client, we have our designated driver and our navigator in the car with the clients, because we don't want to leave one volunteer alone with a bunch of strangers for various reasons. And so always try to make sure we have a safe situation with the 2 volunteers with the clients. And Generally, there's been no issues, no safety issues, lots of fun times and lots of good stories,
Yeah.
and lots of people getting home safely. But it's done in a really safe, calculated way to make sure that there's no problems.
But tell us though, it seems like the people when you talk about the Red Nose, the volunteers. I know you want more volunteers, but the volunteers seem to be having too much fun for me. I mean, it just seems like they're all happy. They're all happy to see each other, and they kind of come back each year and help you guys out. So why do
Yeah,
they do it?
we're so lucky. And I think the people that tend to volunteer for something like Operation Red Nose are usually pretty positive people to begin with. Usually pretty easygoing, usually good with other people, and we get a lot of regulars coming back year after year, and we get a turnover because some people try and they realize, yeah, no, it's not really for me, but it's I just think of this one team this year that they did, I think, 7 nights out of the 9, and the same 3 people got together every time, and they just really enjoyed each other's company, come into it with a real positive attitude, very supportive of trying to raise money for the community and get people home safely and have a really good time with the clients, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people that use the Operation Red Nose service are pretty responsible people because they're trying to get home safely, and so they're good people. They're very appreciative. They're kind of wondering, well, why are you giving up your time at the busiest time of the year to drive drunk people home, right? And so it's a really fun thing to do. Meet lots of great people, both volunteers and clients. You're feeling really good about keeping the roads safe, and at the same time, you're raising money for charity. So,
And the money goes to where? This is the most important part, I think.
yeah. So it's kind of interesting the way the Operation Red Nose program started. It started in Quebec City about almost 40 years ago, and it was the swim coach, the Laval University swim coach, was trying to do something as a community service with their team. And around that time, there'd been some drinking and driving deaths, and they thought, well, why don't we, they decided, why don't we give people a ride home around Christmas time, and people can donate, and that, we can do something for the community and raise a bit of money for the swim program. And so 40 years later, it's all over the country, and there's over 120, I think, chapters around the province or around the country. But all the money ideally goes to youth and sport organizations. Not always have to be a sport organization, but that's the preference of the national organization. And so in the Tri-City, Burnaby, and New West area, where we operate it, the money goes to Kids Sport because that's a youth and sport organization, and it's a very worthy charity.
So I think the Red Nose is great in the concept of raising that funds, and it's a charity you've been involved in for a long time. But then now let's talk about kids sport, because that kind of is your second love. And kids sport is something that you've been involved in since like 2006, around there.
Locally, I've been involved with Kids Sport locally since 2006. Yeah, it started back in 1993. The executive director of Sport BC, which is the umbrella organization of all the different sport organizations around the province, him and some of the board members were trying to figure out, how do we help families who can't afford to register their kids? And this was back in 1993, so it's only gotten worse since then. But it was still an issue back then, and so they came up with the concept of a fund that families could apply to and hopefully get their registration fees paid that way. And over the course of a number of years, they got it going province-wide. Other provinces started doing it, but they realized that they were never going to be able to satisfy the demand for the whole province on their own, and so they encouraged communities to start their own chapters. And so in 2005, a chapter started in the Coquitlam area, and I got involved in a year later. I was involved in the Tri-City Female Ice Hockey Association as the equipment manager, and the NHL Players Association had donated some equipment to Kids Sport, and so the person that was running it in Coquitlam contacted me and chatted about it, and because I knew all about it because I'd been a little bit involved with it in 1993, 94, 95, and so got involved in 2006. By 2008, we expanded it to be a Tri-Cities chapter because there's need in all the Tri-Cities, and a lot of the applications were coming through the schools, and so we thought it would make it a lot more sense. It would make a lot more sense if we covered the same area that the school district covered, and it's just grown since then. The demand in the community is very strong.
Yeah.
And we've been very lucky that we've had some great support from the community. And for the most part, we've been able to meet the demand year after year. Every year we help between 500 and 600 kids play a season of sport. And, it's to me, it's very important on a lot of levels, right? So, on a superficial level, people say, well, yeah, it's great that a 8-year-old boy gets to play a season of soccer and have fun, and that's all good. But at the highest level, what we're hoping to do is break that cycle of poverty, right? I mean, so many of these families are kind of entrenched in poverty, and the life skills that kids can learn through playing a sport is huge. I was fortunate to be able to play a lot of sports as a kid. And learned a ton of life skills through that, about goal setting, about taking criticism, about working as a team, about fitness, motivation, discipline, and those are all skills that I use every day today. And kids who don't get a chance to play a season of sport don't learn those skills. And so, yeah, that grade 8 boy who gets, or 8-year-old boy who gets to play a season of soccer is great, but what we want is for that 8-year-old boy to play soccer every year and work as hard as he can or she can, so that ultimately they might end up getting a scholarship to play soccer at university and actually get a university degree, and that's a great way for the family to be able to break that cycle of poverty. So, I think there's so many different levels to it, and we just want to be able to help kids at all levels.
Yeah, and I think it's like like you said, it's a building of a community. It's inclusion. You've got it's got physical attributes, but it's also mental attributes. You're kind of at least if you are in tough times, it's a way to kind of break from that and just get a break from it. But I know you always joke that your people drop stuff off for your house, but you guys do 2 drives a year. So 2 drives a year, and how do people donate their stuff, and what are those drives?
For sure, yeah. So one of the things that we do, partially as a fundraiser, to be able to pay for more registration fees, but also as a great community program, is we have a used equipment sale twice a year, one in March, usually in Port Coquitlam, usually at Riverside Secondary School, and one in September at the Poirier Forum in Coquitlam. And always for the 10 days leading up to those equipment sales, we have equipment drive, and people can drop off their equipment at the Poco Rec Center, Port Moody Rec Center, or the Poirier Rec Center. And the response from the community is awesome. People are really very generous with their donations. A lot of people have this equipment and they just don't know what to do with it once their kids have finished, or once it doesn't fit anymore. I think when we were younger, there were more extended families. The community was maybe a little bit closer, and the equipment got used, 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, handed down.
Doesn't happen as much anymore, and so they're just really excited to be able to give their equipment to an organization that's going to make really good use of it. But we're always looking for quality equipment.
Yeah.
If you think that it's probably on the verge of being thrown in the garbage, then probably you shouldn't donate it.
Yeah. Throw it in the garbage.
Not that we're trying to be too picky, but in the end, we end up having to throw away quite a bit of equipment to every sale. So yeah, we're encouraging people to donate quality stuff, stuff that's still in pretty good shape, that's not too old. And like I said, the 10 days before the sales at the rec centers, there's big boxes and a great opportunity to donate your stuff and make a difference in the community.
So you got Operation Red Nose raising money to help kids sport, another fundraising source for those 500 or 600 kids. And I guess big news for you is that you brought on some corporate sponsors this year, and that's kind of changed the whole focus for your organization.
We've been, like I said earlier, we've been very well supported by the community, and over the last couple of years, Innovative Fitness has really come on and become a great sponsor, great supporter. Started off with their golf tournament 3 years ago, and then their Train the Trainer event that they do, which is a really fun event. If I was your trainer and you were my client, that night for $50, you get 5 minutes to tell me whatever you want me to do. And you think, oh wow, geez,
Like
okay.
master slave.
Well, there's a lot of people that buy 20 minutes of that time, and they just work that trainer. And it's a very fun event, and it's been super helpful for kids sport because this year they ran the train the trainer event in November, and between the Innovative Fitness Gym in Planet Ice in Coquitlam and the one in Port Moody, they raised $20,000 for
Wow.
kids sport, and just fabulous people at Innovative Fitness, and with that train the trainer money, we're actually starting a high performance fund to try to help young kids who have a ton of talent, but are involved at sport at a high level, and the families just can't handle it. You know, when we were younger, you know, families that were struggling financially, those kids probably still had a chance to play high level sport. But nowadays, and if you don't have money, you don't have a chance. So we're developing this high performance fund. Because right now, with our general fund for kids sport, we can only give up to $400 a year per child. But if you're playing soccer at a high level, hockey at a high level, gymnastics, figure skating, you know, all these sports are so expensive, $400 doesn't get you anywhere. And so through the support from Innovative Fitness, we're going to have a high performance fund, and kids will be able to get, you know, perhaps up to $2,000 a year to really achieve their potential.
Well, thank you very much. Obviously, you're very actively involved in the community as just a citizen, and the stuff you do for the Operation Red Nose and the kids' sport, raising those funds and making a big difference in a lot of people's lives. So, I want to thank you for that. I think it's commendable for sure.
Well, I'm only one person on a huge
Oh, yeah.
team of people that are really doing a lot of great work.
But
so
you need people with
thank you.
energy, so
Well, thank
I
you.
think you're part of that team. So.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So you can see here, Councillor Wilson has got two charities dear to his heart. The Operation Red Nose, which is great for getting people home on the holiday season and their car. The money they raise from that, it goes into the kids sport program, which we just heard, 500 to 600 kids a year, helps pay for their registration. On top of that, you can donate some of that used but not abused equipment. And that it also helps make sport a lot cheaper as well in the community for those who are, trying to play hockey or any of those sports out there. Again, this is Patrick McCarthy reporting with Tri-Cities Community Television. Thank you very much for watching.